It's time for Blessed to Play on EWTN Radio, uncovering the role that faith plays in the lives of sports professionals from around the country. And now, here's your host, Ron Meyer.
Meyer, score!
My guest today is a priest for the Diocese of Camden in New Jersey. Father Tom Barcellona has been a priest for 20 years, and in addition to his daily parish responsibilities, he's also the chaplain, the Catholic chaplain, to the NFC Champions Philadelphia Eagles. We'll talk to Father Tom about his chaplaincy with the Eagles and his road to the priesthood. Joining us from southern New Jersey is Father Tom Barcellona. Father Tom, welcome to Blessed to Play.
Welcome. Thank you. And once again, it's 29 years ordained.
29 years. I misspoke. Yes, a long time. You've been a priest, and I'm sure you're blessing the people that are now at your parish there in Cape May County. But let's talk about this journey. You grew up in Woodbridge, New Jersey. I'm sure you love sports like every other kid did, but talk about just enjoying sports as a kid, and in particular football.
Right. Well, football was an enjoyment as any young. Nowadays it's a little bit different with football, with the parents going more towards soccer. But growing up with football was a thing. It was a team game we play. And it was fun more watching than maybe playing too as well at that point. So, and when I decided to go into the seminary, I went to the seminary up into Scranton, the University of Scranton. We lived in Pius X Seminary up in Dalton, PA, and then we commuted down to Scranton for 4 years down there. We had Sandlock football that we played there a little bit on that point too as well.
Being in the seminary in Scranton and this journey to the priesthood, when did you first have the inclination or the desire to at least look into perhaps becoming a priest? How early was that for you?
Well, I guess, that's a question that's asked many times. I wouldn't say there's one specific time, but I think I was very close to the church, close to the priesthood in my parish as well. And I guess in high school, when you're trying to make life decisions to do that, and I didn't go in right after high school. I went in at 26 years old is when I started. So I was in the business world for a little bit on that point beforehand. And it's just a sense that, you feel that drive or you feel that call, or that's something special in that way too as well, where you feel that comfort in church too as well, as I'm becoming part of church too as well.
Now, as I mentioned, you're a priest in the Diocese of Camden, and for our listeners, that is in the southern part of New Jersey, but very close to Philadelphia. In fact, you had other parish assignments, and I don't know how this Philadelphia Eagles chaplaincy opened up, but tell us how this came to fruition.
Okay. Well, yeah, we're the lower 6 counties in the state of New Jersey, Camden Diocese, and literally we share bridges from to Philadelphia. And what happened was I was at a retreat house. I was running a retreat house in Camden, Pius X Retreat House, and who is now Bishop Cecchio. He was Monsignor Cecchio at that time. Was called back to Rome to the North American College, and he was the chaplain at the time. And when he left, got to know people over there through him. They asked me to take over the chaplaincy on that point, and that's 20 years ago. It was 03. And I guess the rest, they say, is history on that point.
Blessed to Play, Ron Meyer. We're chatting today with Father Tom Barcellona, 29 years a priest at Diocese of Camden. He's also the chaplain to the NFC Champions Philadelphia Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly is the motto, and Father Tom knows that pretty well. So let's talk about this chaplaincy. Over 20 years, and you've been to the Super Bowl in Jacksonville. Eagles came up on the short end, but last year was a very special year. Obviously, it came up on the short end, but they made it to the big game. But talk about just being present for the players and what your responsibilities are as a Catholic chaplain for this NFL team.
Right, it really has changed, or almost like a metamorphosis over the 20 years that they've been involved with it. At first we would have mass at the airport, Philadelphia airport. The team would stay overnight on Saturday before the game, so the home games. And that was a little bit different on that point. You're going in there and you're in a room, a special room, like almost a banquet room. Would you have mass? And I guess there was always about 15, 20 people for mass at that point too as well, coming in there. And definitely mass is the night before. That's always been the process here at the Eagles. You do the night before the home games.
Mm-hmm.
So, like tomorrow night, I'll go over, which has changed now. We're out of the airport. We're actually in the Nova Center now. I'll go over there for mass at 6:30 tomorrow night. So we'll have mass at 6:30 tomorrow night, and then they'll play the preseason game on Thursday. And it plays out that we're there for mass time. If anyone wants to go to confession beforehand, I always stay and have dinner with the players and the coaches too as well, either before or after the match. I'll stay a little bit over there at that point. And during the many years, as that things would be baptized children, or sometimes there's some woes, or even sometimes dealing with death with a parent or a friend. So you're just there in sense of counseling in the priestly way on that point. I guess that's a great way of saying it.
Yeah, it's sort of a parish community or another parish community, and you're obviously meeting the spiritual needs of these men and perhaps even staff members as well. But talk about some of the players that you developed relationships with over these 20 years. Obviously Reggie White was a big presence there, the Minister of Defense, in fact, and Donovan McNabb. You had a number of coaches that have come through, but talk about some of those relationships that were formed.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't mention names, so that's what I won't mention name on that point. So many times I'm asked who comes to mass, who doesn't come to mass, and if I learned something over the 20 years, is not to be a name dropper on that point, but yeah, very much relationship. There's a few there, minor coaches and the staff members that really I started with them 20 years ago. They're still present over there. The players come and they go too as well. Some of them you do build up relationships with them at that point, and they may pop up at the mass at one of the parishes I was at, or maybe just see them there somewhere, as simple as down the beach. Or I'm in Cape May courthouse, seeing them down at the beach too, if you want to cross to them. But you keep a little bit of a bond you establish with them, and it's a very much a friend bond too as well as the many non-Catholics that are over there. With some of the guys I might sit and have dinner with some of them during the whole season. And it's just it's that relationship. And you use the word family. It really is like an extended family that it comes to be over there on that point. That, they're there and I'm there. And the relationship is always open. If they need anything, they can always get a hold of me too as well at that point.
So let's talk about some of the special seasons that you have witnessed over these 20 years. I mean, obviously, the Super Bowls were big, and you went to the one in Jacksonville. Talk about that experience, being with the team and also being at that Super Bowl in Florida.
Right. I mean, it's a long time ago, to be honest with you. I was not able to attend the other two Super Bowls because I have my commitment as a pastor too as well here that I cannot overlie. It can't. The parish comes first, I guess is the best way to put it. And so I have a couple of priest friends that went out to both Minnesota and then last year to Arizona to do it. What I remember is chaos. I guess is the best way to put it in Jacksonville. It was not enough hotel space there. It was Jacksonville was not that big of a town, and I guess it was good chaos too as well, and it's the excitement too as well to be present there. And of course you want to win, but you had to basically suck it up afterwards. That they say that it wasn't meant to be on that point. So I mean that's how I look at it. I mean it's a challenge. It's a challenge. I mean I know how I feel sometimes afterwards, but I think for these players, they work all summer now. They've been in training camp now, and they go into it and they do a great season, all the bumps and bruises and so on and so forth. And then they come down and, a matter of 2 or 3 points or a touchdown or something, at that point, and they wind up losing. It's a letdown sometimes as well.
Yeah, I think many fans don't realize the life of a professional athlete. It could be very volatile. I mean, obviously, there's some that have a lot of longevity. I think the average span of an NFL player is a little bit over 3 years, so it's not very long, and it could be cut short with injury. And there's trades, and they could get cut. So they're in a situation where their life could change immediately. Do you find out that's where you come in handy when they need some counseling?
Sometimes afterwards, yes, or in a sense of a trade, they may be traded, and they really didn't want to be traded, and I hate to say it, you become a commodity almost on that point, where you wish you had that much control. You do, to your age, you have some sense of control, but I mean, you could be here today and gone tomorrow on that point, or as you said earlier, one little injury, and I'm not saying one injury. That it could change your life. What you're used to and what you're part of could change for the rest of your life too, as well. And that's split second at that point. And we saw injuries last year. Many times we saw many injuries that really, it really stopped them. I mean, it stopped them in their tracks. And a different way to look at it. I tell them too. Also, sometimes, as people are asking to me on that point. You always have to have a second plan. On that way, sometimes, like I was saying earlier about vocations, I said, I was in the working world before I went into the seminary. And, I think I was going to stay there? No, I thought I was going to eventually go in. It was just trying to find that sense of commitment to say, yes, I want to go in. And I say to them sometimes, football is great now, but it's not going to be, unless you're Brady or some other longevity with a long life at that point. But you got to look forward to, with some sense, with an education, but something where you're going to go to afterwards as well. And I think that's so important sometimes too. And not just for football. I think that's any sport in general on that point, though.
Yeah, some good words there. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we'll pick it up with Father Tom Barcellona, priest for the Diocese of Camden in New Jersey, and also the chaplain to the NFC Champions Philadelphia Eagles. Keep it right here. You're listening to Blessed to Play.
A prayer for the holy souls in purgatory.
God, our Creator and Redeemer, by your power Christ conquered death and returned to you in glory. May all your people who have gone before us in faith share his victory and enjoy the vision of your glory forever. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Welcome back to Blessed to Play. Ron Meyer joined today with Father Tom Barcellona, a priest for the Diocese of Camden in New Jersey, not far from Philadelphia, which allows him to also be the Catholic chaplain to the Philadelphia Eagles. And he's been doing this 20 years or so, and got to attend the Super Bowl in Jacksonville, and of course have seen many teams, many players coming out. He provides a great service to the club, the sacraments, in fact. Saying mass for the team and being there for counseling, confessions, and so on and so forth, as he talked about in the first half of the show. Father Tom, there's a lot of parallels, I think, in doing a sports radio show between the virtues and also being an athlete. Maybe you could talk about that, because athletes deal with so much stuff in what I would say is an innocuous environment, in the sense that it's not usually life or death. It's something you're learning as you're playing the game. But maybe you could talk about the correlation about being a competitive athlete and also pursuing the spiritual life as well.
Well, yeah, I think too. Also, you guys look. I always said one time I ran the CYO here when we had CYO in the diocese, and I'm very active with CAC, with Catholic Athletes for Christ. And once again, I think it's a sense of ministry. That's what I always say, with that sense of looking at ministry. And each person is a minister. Mm-hmm. And on a maybe say a high school or a grade school level, the player is a minister, the coach is a minister, the family, the parents are ministers in that way of faith. It's a projective on that point to say that they all come into faith on that point. That they're all disciples. They're all disciples in that sense of ministry to look forward with faith on that point. Everybody wants to be, and everybody thinks they're going to be the greatest too as well. And, in my lifetime, I've seen many parents struggle and send them to this camp or that camp because they're going to be the next great basketball player or football player or baseball player. And it doesn't happen that way too. Or sometimes they're doing it that the child did not want to do it. They're doing it for the parents on that point. And it's a sense of that sense of spirituality or virtues we're saying. Sometimes there's wisdom, the gifts of the Spirit. Sometimes there's knowledge and wisdom. You think of this as the Spirit and the different ways of knowing where you are and knowing what you can do as well. You can only do so much, and you can only push yourself so much. And, everybody cannot be the quarterback. Everybody cannot be the pitcher at that point, or the guard. Different ways that we're called for. God blesses you, and I think it's accepting that too as well. And, I go back to the Phillies last week with a no-hitter at that point, where faith really played in that, on him saying afterwards that he thanked God for the talents that he had that he was able to do on that day for that no-hitter. And I think that's where sometimes you get into conflict sometimes. And sometimes, even with coaches' wives and talking with coaches sometimes where they may say something about this guy or that guy doesn't say something to me. And it's the challenge that, once again, you have to look through, you're looking through rose-colored glasses sometimes, but sometimes you got to really make the step back, or almost mind of wine of being maybe the father figure in that point with these young guys coming out. You think about the young guys coming out in any sports. I mean, at 20, 21 years of age, 22 years of age, and millions and millions and millions of dollars. And, it's mind-boggling sometimes at that point. But, to get into the way to know what is and, what you can do and how you can do it as well at that point. So
yeah, that's a great point, because I know that a lot of these players are very young, and as you mentioned, they're coming in with a ton of money now. They're signed a big contract, and that head coach or the coaches on the team could be a father figure or just a guide for them to get through life. They're so young and fragile at that point, and the whole world is right in front of them, and with all the allures, temptations, so on and so forth. Which brings me to some practical advice for young athletes, because we're living in a sports crazy culture, as you know, and you mentioned before about the young athlete trying to pursue a scholarship in sports, which is not bad in and of itself, but obviously we need to put God first in all things. So how does the young athlete pragmatically pursue competitiveness, pursue the best that they can be athletically, but also keeping God at the center?
That's $1 million question. Let me tell you how much. You can write a couple books on that one. I don't know if I have the right answer or the correct answer for that too as well. I mean, it's faith-driven sometimes, but you see the choices here, and I see as a pastor, I've been seeing it as a pastor over the last 30 years, the change of sometimes where Sunday was the family day. Come and basically celebrate liturgy as a faith-filled day, to take time to be together, to pray together. But I would say over the last 10, 15 years ago now, even with the young kids, these sports, and it's not just sports. I mean, it might be dance or it might be something else on that point, has really bumped out almost Sunday being the family day, being the day to come to worship, to come the day to come to pray and to be with God too as well. So I'm just saying it's a loaded question at that point. How do you do it? You promote it. Sometimes you don't want to make it mandatory. Like sometimes the sacrament years, they made a lot of stuff mandatory, but sometimes the mandatory things sometimes can turn people away too also. And we want to evangelize. We want to be there to evangelize to them, to say, come, let's sit down and talk, and maybe there's a different way, a different approach that we can go about doing it as well. And I think that plays within the family. It plays within sports too as well on that point. And as I said earlier, they're gung-ho coming in very young. But sometimes they have to look up to the older players that are there too as well. Maybe the one guy that's, maybe a tackle or center and has 10, 15 years experience, and not so much saying that, you walk around with your chest blown out saying, oh, I'm good. I got this, I got that. But sometimes it's the commonality or the commonness of the people to come together in that faith way. The trust, I think the word trust comes in there. To trust them too as well in that point.
From your observations, and a football team is one of the consummate team sports. You have to be in unison just to get a playoff, or you go off sides, especially on the offensive side. But how important is that spiritual bond amongst players for team chemistry? Because this doesn't get talked about in the secular media, but after the game, you see both teams coming together in the middle of the field and have a prayer, but it doesn't get talked about, like I mentioned. But how important is that to the life of an NFL team?
Well, it's just not an NFL. I think it's all team-wise. You'll see where, but basically, I've seen it in the locker room too beforehand, as well as a simple prayer, whether it's a college game or a high school game, the sense of prayer that's said beforehand. And once again, in the sense of thanksgiving coming back at the end, no matter what the outcome was. But it's that sense of unity. It's a team sport. You just said it. It's a team sport. It's not an individual sport. It's a team sport. And I think when you play as a team, and I said that in the homilies over there, we're talking to them, when you play as a team, no matter offense or defense, when you play as a team in that sense, and the spirit with you in that sense of team-wise, it comes together. It works together too as well. It's no different than a parish where, you might be the pastor, but you have a team. It's a team effort with all who works with you, whether it's a DRE or CRE, your deacons, the laity. That all comes together to form the outcome, to form something that's good at that point. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. Also, we think obviously as Catholics, pray to saints for their intercession, but the young athletes out there may be looking for a saint to help them out, to get closer to God, and also to help them out be the athlete that they can be. Who's that one saint that you would point to?
I have multitudes I do at that point, but the young one, Carlos, Blessed Carlos. I always had the younger guys coming in high school, going into into the professional thing too. It's a young guy right there. I mean, he wasn't a sports enthusiast; he was a tech guy. But once again, looking at that point, well, I use St. John Vianney sometimes. That's that's our priest, that's parish priest. But once again, and no matter what he did or the struggles that he had many struggles, whether it was in the seminary or whatever. But he still found his place. He still found God, or the sense of people, and sitting down with confession every day, night, summer, winter, and that point. He's a good guy that offers the challenge in that way. And then you can go into other saints. I mean, you can list the whole saints, and they read Akasha for for hopeless causes sometimes. At that point, that's an outreach to do it. Or I mean, Joseph as the stepfather of Christ as well. There was he was basically the secondary player in that point on that thing with the, not to take second stance to Blessed Mother, but there's so many different saints and different ways to do it. I always tell them to Google it. I go online and like I tell our confirmandi kids, go on, find an interest you have and go on, Google it, and find out and read the story and see where that story fits into your life.
Yeah, it just came to mind. If you're in Philadelphia, you have to kind of call on St. Catherine Drexel as well, don't you?
Drexel, well, yep. Well, Drexel or John Newman or Elizabeth Ann Seton. I mean, they're the three biggies over in that area at that point too as well.
Yeah, territorial prayer to pray to a saint to could help us out, right? No doubt about it.
For sure.
Now, listen, I know the NFC Champion Philadelphia Eagles shared something with you that they shared with their players, and it had a lot of bling on it. In fact, I got to see when I met Father Tom his championship ring, which I didn't say at the time, Father Tom, but the reflection from the sun off of those diamonds were really blinding me, but a beautiful piece of jewelry, I will say, and that had to be pretty special for you when the Eagles presented you with the NFC Championship ring.
That's for sure. I've been blessed to be able to have the Super Bowl ring and as well as the championship ring too as well. And that championship ring was a little bit of a surprise as well. Both times calling and saying that I was going to wind up getting one. Never in my life would I ever think I have a Super Bowl ring at that point. And, I don't wear jewelry, so, it becomes more of a conversation piece than anything on that point. But it makes me feel good because I think I'm appreciated with that little gesture on that point. That you're part of the group. You're not it's an outsider looking in, but you become part of the team as well on that point. So.
Yeah, indeed. And if we see Father Tom on the sidelines during a game, are you sweating it out with the team? Are you emotionally into the game? What is your demeanor during the course of watching the Eagles play?
It's, they play a lot of 1:00 games. And as a pastor, it's very tough because we have baptisms on Sunday. So the early afternoon games, I'm usually catching it on the second, after halftime. But it is exciting sometimes. And sometimes, it's great to be at the field, but sometimes it's just as great to sit in your living room, too, and watch it sometimes in silence that you can hear different things. And you pray that they may win, too, as well.
Well, God answered your prayers for wins last year quite abundantly, and we'll see what happens during the 2023 season. Well, Father Tom Barcellona has been our guest. As I mentioned, he's a priest in the Diocese of Camden and also the Catholic chaplain to the NFC Champions Philadelphia Eagles. Father Tom, thanks so much for carving out some time on what is a busy day for you, and we know that, and talk a little bit about sports, but also your journey into the priesthood. Thanks so much for coming on Blessed to Play.
All right. God bless you, and thank you for the interview, too, as well. May you be at peace.
Hey, Blessed to Play fans, check us out on the web at www.blessedtoplay.com. That's blessed, the number 2, play.com. You could like us on Facebook and hit us up on the platform X, formerly known as Twitter, at Blessed to Play. For Father Tom Barcellona, I'm Ron Meyer. We'll catch you next time right here on Blessed to Play.
You've been listening to Blessed to Play with host Ron Meyer on the EWTN Global Catholic Network. If you have a question or comment about today's show, feel free to email us at info@blessedtoplay.com. That's blessed, the number 2, play.com. You can also connect with the show on the web at www.blessedtoplay.com. Again, that's blessed, the number 2, play.com. Join us again next time for Blessed to Play on the EWTN Global Catholic Network.